Are you ready? We decided to put the announcements at the beginning of the service, or actually outside the beginning of the service. Hopefully, more people will pay attention to them then, but I'm not sure about that. And we have a little feedback. Okay, there we go. Okay, a special note, a talkback will follow the service in this sanctuary at 11:15. Please come to share your thoughts with the minister, and then if you like, join Gary and Dory for a bite of lunch afterwards at Napolitos. All right. A couple of notes. Notice that the church office hours are Tuesday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And the library hours, of course, are regular on from 1 to 3 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Sunday from 11 to 11:30. Uh, we need volunteers for the auction. The auction is coming up on Earth Day. That's April 22nd. And someone asked me what they should do about Earth Day, and I said, "Well, bring bags of earth. I think that would be appropriate." They didn't think that was funny either, so I won't mention that again. But seriously, we do need volunteers, and there's a sign-up desk in the foyer, the lobby, or the narthex, depending on how you describe it. And I think it's Sarah Thomas is sitting there. So if you'd like to volunteer for a position at the auction, it would be a matter of an hour or two, uh, time that you could put in. Please do that. Also, we have Circle Supper scheduled for April, and what we need you to do right now is sign up for a Circle Supper. If you want to attend a Circle Supper, again, Lynn Pearson is at that table, and you can sign up for one of the 3 or 4 that are being offered. Okay? The gallery exhibit continues. There's a multicultural meeting this afternoon at 3:30. I'm sure you know that. And the Climate Action Group is meeting tomorrow. Uh, and let's see. Oh, this is exciting. Emma's Revolution is coming on is that the 19th? Yes, the 19th of April. I don't know if you've heard Emma's Revolution. It's two women who do a marvelous job with music. So put that in your notebook, if you will. And I think that is the end of the announcements. Very good. We'll begin in just a moment. And there's a woman in the back waving at me. Why are you waving at me, Irene? Pardon me. Say that again. Oh, for people who want to go to lunch with Gary and his wife. Okay. Yeah, that's good. All right. David, you want to make an announcement?
Last week I had and I said everybody anybody see that? It was Saturday, we left it on Saturday.
They probably sold it already. Yeah. You know how that happens. You get the let the auction committee have something, and bang, it's gone. Okay, that's a star-shaped thing, isn't it?
Well, it comes to already the whole flat, so.
Well, someone must have seen it and folded it flat. Yeah. Well, that's the way it goes. We'll have our opening song in just a moment, so prepare yourself. Did you get it?
Oh, well, then, yeah.
The lost is found again. I think that's in the Bible somewhere. Okay, we have special music today, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, we're going to sing our opening song. Uh, why don't you give us a wind up for that, and then I'll talk about it because it requires some special attention. Okay, can I see the next slide, please? All right. Now that's how it goes for the first verse. Then we sing to the power of hope within. Is that right? Okay. And then we sing to the power of, give us the next slide if you would, of love within. Okay. So it's three times. Are you ready? Okay. Well, I guess we could do joy. Yeah. Why not? Sure. I don't see joy in the audience, but why not? We can do that. Okay. Are you ready? One, a two, three. Stand if you're willing to stand. Young let us sing, 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 let us sing, sing. Thank you. Wonderful. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces. We welcome those of you who are in our sanctuary and also those of you who are on streaming technology. I'm Charlie Scholes, your service associate this morning. Our service leader is Reverend Gary Kowalski. Our religious education director who chose the video today is Kelly Ingram. And music this morning is provided by David and Nancy Carlson and our special guests, Abigail and Margot Soro. You'll hear them in performance shortly. Technical assistance today is Elwin Nunn on camera, Claire Neal Wallace on audio, and Mike Yazko on Zoom. And for those of you who are on Zoom, you probably noticed if you got the order of service that it shows you the people who are there and also who the greeters are today, as well as the hospitality. And the greeters in my book say John Seeley, Tom Packard, and Jane Ash, and hospitality is provided by the Social Justice Committee. As we say, it takes a village to bring off a service like this, and we're all delighted to be with you today. Unitarian Universalism has no creed or doctrine. We are a covenant-based church, meaning we agree to live in relationship with one another according to the Unitarian Universalist principles and the congregation's covenant of right relations. We embrace diversity in all its forms, and everyone is welcome here. If you want to learn more about our church, you might look at our website, uuchurchlc.org. And if you're visiting us today, we'd like to meet you. If you're in the sanctuary, please rise in body or spirit, and I'll bring the mic to you, and you can introduce yourself. Do we have any visitors this morning? We have one or two. Okay. Is my mic on? It is on. All right. Yes, Karen.
Good morning. Good morning, one and all. It is so delightful to be back here in our second home church, and we're happy to see you all. You have a place in our hearts, and we never forget you. So thank you for still being here.
Thank you, Karen. Yes.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Shaw Nejat, last name, and my wife Mary O'Connor. We've been with Unitarian on and off, but we decided to come back again. This is our first time, so thank you for being here.
Good. Welcome.
Hello and good morning. My name is Eric Wright. I'm visiting from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I just came in yesterday. I used to attend this church back when I was in middle school, and that was in 1976, 77, and 78. And Elwin was my Sunday school teacher. And we taught comparative religion. I remember that, and I still think of that with great fondness. And the sex ed course, which Unitarians do so especially well, famously well, by the way. So it's great to be back here. It's great to see you. I'm here in town actually, rather bittersweet occasion. My aunt is going through the early stages of dementia, and so eager to find connections in the community for elder care and kind of ways to help her out. My uncle's going through a difficult time right now, so that's why I'm in town. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else? Other visitors? All righty. If you are visiting us on Zoom, you can identify yourself by turning on your mic and opening your camera. Do we have anyone on Zoom? Anyone joining us? And they're shaking their heads. Okay, thank you. I want to remind you that we're having, let's see, we always have what we call coffee and conversation, and that'll be in the RE building down the passageway. And I think it might be outside today too, if it's warm enough. Who knows? I've been gone all week, and someone told me you had a very cold week. I'm not sure what that means exactly, because I'm cold when it's 60 degrees outside. But that's because my blood is thinned, I think. Okay. Our opening words this morning are from Dreaming the Dark by Starkweather. We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing, a circle of friends, some place where we can be free. We're going to light our chalice now. We light this chalice this morning with these words from Marjorie Montgomery, who says, "Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift." Will you please rise in body or spirit to join me in saying our church's affirmation of covenant, and then join in the singing of the doxology in English and Spanish. The words are on the screen. Love is the doctrine of the church. The Catholic Church is our sacrament, and service is not believed. To the feet of freedom,
That all souls shall know harmony with us. From all that dwell below the sea, let songs of hope and let these strength fill our peace. So back up, so they come
Alone. Toad went to Frog's house. He found a note on the door. The note said, "Dear Toad, I'm not at home. I went out. I want to be alone."
Alone? Asked Toad. Frog has me for a friend. Why does he want to be alone?
Toad looked through the windows. He looked in the garden. He did not see Frog. Toad went to the woods. Frog was not there. He went to the meadow. Frog was not there. Toad went down to the river. There was Frog. He was sitting on an island by himself.
Poor Frog, said Toad. He must be very sad. I will cheer him up.
Toad ran home. He made sandwiches. He made a pitcher of iced tea. He put everything in a basket. Toad hurried back to the river.
Frog,
He shouted.
it's me. It's your best friend, Toad.
Frog was too far away to hear. Toad took off his jacket. He waved it like a flag. Frog was too far away to see. Toad shouted and waved, but it was no use. Frog sat on the island. He did not see or hear Toad. A turtle swam by. Toad climbed on the turtle's back.
Turtle,
Said Toad.
carry me to the island. Frog is there. He wants to be alone.
If Frog wants to be alone, said the turtle, why don't you leave him alone?
Maybe you're right, said Toad. Maybe Frog does not want to see me. Maybe he does not want me to be his friend any more. Yes, maybe, said the turtle as he swam to the island. Frog! cried Toad. I'm sorry for all the dumb things I do. I'm sorry for all the silly things I say. Please, be my friend again.
Toad slipped off the turtle. With a splash, he fell in the river. Frog pulled Toad out onto the island. Toad looked in the basket. The sandwiches were wet. The pitcher of iced tea was empty.
Our lunch is spoiled,
Said Toad.
I made it for you, Frog, so that you would be happy.
But Toad, said Frog, I am happy. I'm very happy. This morning when I woke up, I felt good because the sun was shining. I felt good because I was a frog. And I felt good because I have you for a friend. I wanted to be alone. I wanted to think about how fine everything is.
Oh, said Toad. I guess that is a very good reason for wanting to be alone.
Now, said Frog, I will be glad not to be alone. Let's eat lunch. Frog and Toad stayed on the island all afternoon. They ate wet sandwiches without iced tea. They were two close friends, sitting alone together.
In our opening hymn, may nothing evil cross this door. Number 1. Rise if you're Bonnie's group.
Please from me. Hey, Lord. I take faithful. Yes, my God. And it's your upset. Spread to
One of the ways we express care for one another in our community is through the sharing of joy, sorrows, and milestones. Uh, if you have a joy, a sorrow, and a milestone that you'd like to share with us this morning, uh, please raise your hand. I'll bring the microphone to you. Please say your name and what is in your heart. Just a quick reminder, this is not a time for announcements. And if you're on Zoom, you can put your joy, sorrow, or milestone in the chat box. We have some this morning.
Hello, my name is Bill Markley, and I would like to encourage everyone to give out contact and friendship to Dave and Eileen Steele. She's very ill, and he's pretty much alone in handling it. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Someone else. Yes, ma'am.
Shirley Davis is in Massachusetts. She went there to help her sister, who died March 17th, and they're having the memorial service this weekend. So Shirley may be back before too long.
We'll keep her in our thoughts. Yes.
I'm Chris Northcutt. I have a joy. Um, I think it was 2 years ago. I got some iris blooms from Top Haggard, and it was 1 year ago on Friday that John died, and I've got a beautiful, beautiful flower coming up from you. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I had a friend from my previous church in Dallas, named Pennick, who passed away a couple weeks ago. He was very young, very full of promise, but was struggling. And so that's in my heart and everybody from my home church. And there's a theme about being alone and not feeling like you have to be alone. And that was something that I know he needed to hear as well. So I hope everybody's heard that message today.
Thank you, Lisa. Someone else.
About 5 weeks ago, Scott and I became grandparents. So we have a grandson, Lachlan James.
Lachlan James McLaughlin. Yes, Lachlan James McLaughlin. Oh, James Kramer. Oh, okay. Well, I was thinking it's an appropriate McLaughlin name, certainly. We're pointing in two directions here. Okay. Someone else. Yes, I see someone down there.
Something that's disturbing me and making me feel kind of scared is the way the trans community is being treated by our politicians and making who they are a crime and denying them medical care when they need it. It just unsettles me terribly.
Thank you, Robert. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm Kevin Fitzgerald, and I got a joy. Yesterday, I signed the membership book. Happy to be here.
Congratulations. All right. Anyone else? Yes. Lady in the balcony.
Good morning. I have a joy. I have a joy that I'm sitting in the overflow seating. That's pretty exciting. And I have another joy, and that was the membership new to UU's meeting that we had yesterday was wonderful. Kevin was one of those there, and a lot of other very interesting possible new members. And after the meeting, Kevin and 3 other people signed the book.
Thank you, Susan. And I have a joy today. Nancy and I were in Prescott, Arizona on Thursday doing the installation of a good friend of ours, Patty Willis, in it's called the Granite Peak UU Church. We had a wonderful time, and afterwards they had a party, and I'll send you the dance video if you're interested. Nancy said I really exhausted myself. I probably did, but I was great.
And may the joys and sorrows of each of us be the joys and sorrows of all. Let's take a moment to pause, to become fully present, to let ourselves breathe more deeply, to listen, settle into our seats, open our hearts, soften our focus, be aware of the beauty and the humanity gathered in this room. Teach us to live on the cusp. Here, just past the equinox, where light and dark find a balance, as the ever-wheeling earth carries us toward another season. Help us to stop, to pay attention, to appreciate the chill of morning and the warmth of early afternoon. As nature revives all around us, to feel our own roots digging down into the earth and our own spirits rising up to the sky, to seize this day, which is the only one we possess. Our moment together in the sun. Amen.
Our reading this morning is from Wendell Berry. It's from the writing he wrote called The Unsettling of America. The concept of health is rooted in the concept of wholeness. To be healthy is to be whole. The word health belongs to a family of words, a listing of which will suggest how far the consideration of health must carry us. Heal, whole, wholesome, hail, hallow, holy. And so it is possible to give a definition to health that is positive and more elaborate than that given by most medical doctors and officers of public health. If the body is healthy, then it is whole. But how can it be whole and yet be dependent, as it obviously is, upon other bodies and upon the earth, upon all the rest of creation, in fact? Our bodies are not distinct from the bodies of other people on which they depend in a complexity of ways, from biological to spiritual. They are not distinct from the bodies of plants and animals with which we are involved in the cycles of feeding and in the intricate companionship of ecological systems and of the spirit. They are not distinct from the earth, the sun and the moon, and the other heavenly bodies. It is therefore absurd to approach the subject of health piecemeal with a departmentalized band of specialists. Our fragmentation of this subject cannot be our cure because it is our disease. The body cannot be whole alone. Persons cannot be whole alone. We sang that last week. No one is alone. It is wrong to think that bodily health is compatible with spiritual confusion or cultural disorder, or with polluted air and water or impoverished soil. Intellectually, we know that these patterns of interdependence exist. We understand them better now than perhaps we ever have been. Yet modern social and cultural patterns contradict them and make it difficult or impossible to honor them in practice.
There's one more line, Charlie.
That's all I have.
Okay.
I love to feel the gentle rain of summer. I love the snow that falls from winter skies. The flowers of spring, the lovely leaves of autumn bring tears of joy and wonder to my eyes. And so I sing a song to celebrate that life is good, that life is good. And so I sing a song to celebrate that life is good, that life is good. I love the birds that sing to greet the morning. I love the moon and stars that light the night. All nature joins to fill our world around us with everything that's beautiful and bright. And so I'll sing a song to celebrate that life is good, that life is good. And so I sing a song to celebrate that life is good, that life is good. We hold in trust from those who went for us the priceless gifts of earth and sea and air. This heritage for future generations should be a gift that all can truly share. And so I sing a song to celebrate that life is good, that life is good. And so I sing a song to celebrate that life is good, that life is good.
Thank you so much. I'd invite you to open your hymn book to the reading number 468, We Need One Another. And let's have those on my right begin the reading, and those on the left side of the room join in the response. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we're in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we're in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die, and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. You all know this song, Eleanor Rigby, wearing the face that she keeps in the jar by the door. Who's it for? And Father Mackenzie, writing the words to a sermon, no one will hear, no one comes near, all the lonely people. Where do they all come from? It's kind of interesting that in St. Peter's Parish Church in Liverpool, there's actually a grave marker with the name Eleanor Rigby. It's dated 1939, and nearby there's another tombstone with the name Mackenzie. And St. Peter's Church Sunday School is where John Lennon got his religious education, and it was at a church social where he and Paul McCartney first met. But they both said they had no memory of that at all. They just chose those names from their own imaginations, because these were not real people, Eleanor Rigby and Father Mackenzie. They could have been anyone and everyone, because we are, all of us, the lonely people. The physicians who work in the National Health Service in Great Britain say that 1/5 of the people who come into their offices to be seen do so primarily because they're lonely. And that's about the same number as here in the United States, who say that they have no companionship. 20% say they often or always feel lonely. And even more than that, about a quarter say that they have no trusted confidence. There's no one that they can talk to, no one with whom they can share deep personal issues or struggles, no one who can listen or empathize or understand. So we're talking about roughly 60 million people in this country. So if you're feeling alone, you're not alone. I'm nobody, wrote the poet Emily Dickinson. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell anyone. They'd advertise, you know. Apparently, Emily did have many close friends despite being a virtual recluse who hardly ever left the town of Amherst. Often she just preferred, like Toad, to be by herself. She preferred the company of her pen and poetry. Loneliness is something different than solitude. You know, mystics and artists and some amphibians can thrive on solitude. They get their inspiration, their creativity, their resilience. They get that from within or from above. And solitude can mean reading a book with very lively companions. Think of Bilbo Baggins or Scout Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. Solitude can mean spending time in nature where there's seldom a dull moment if you don't mind gazing up at the clouds or watching the wind move through the branches of a tree, which I don't mind at all. And solitude is vital because unless we're comfortable in our own skins, unless we feel at home with ourselves and in our own souls, we can hardly be fit companions for other people. But loneliness is something different. Loneliness arises not from being cast back onto one's own thoughts and inner resources, but rather from lacking any real contact beyond that. It's the feeling of being left out. Join us. Loneliness is the feeling of being left out, being invisible in a crowd. It's being isolated in a room full of laughing people. And loneliness carries with it very often this sense of stigma or shame. You know, it's not just being single, it's being singled out as some kind of misfit or nerd. It creates this reservoir of self doubt that renders ordinary social interactions more awkward than they need to be. Uh, Fear of rejection kind of builds a wall inside us, and every difficult encounter or awkward moment, it adds a brick to that wall, uh, confining us ever more closely inside this self-imposed cloister. And that's a very cold place to live. This past winter, our heat went out in Santa Fe, and this has been a cold winter. But we were able to call our neighbors who live just down the road, and they lent us a couple of space heaters. So we did stay warm until the repairman could come up the icy road. But you know, how hard would it be for me or for any of us to call up a neighbor and say, right now, I need a little human warmth. I need some tea and sympathy because my own fires are burning kind of low right now. You know, most of us would uh, rather freeze to death than to admit that we're vulnerable, that we can't do it all ourselves. The Bible says it's not good for man to be alone. And isolation impacts our health in so many ways that are the opposite of good. People who lack social connections are at 50% higher risk of premature death. The experience of loneliness is the medical equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes, about a pack a day. It's a bigger hazard than obesity or excessive drinking or lack of exercise. And that shouldn't be too surprising, you know. Children were very aware. They need snuggling. They need cuddling. They need to be held in order to thrive. In fact, the first 3 months of infancy, just after they've been born, that's sometimes called the fourth trimester, because babies need just as much warmth and comfort outside the womb as before they were born. And little ones who don't have that contact have markedly lower levels of oxytocin, which is the so-called love hormone that allows us to build trust and experience connection with other people. Skin contact, being touched, a caress, that will slow the heart rate. It will reduce the body's level of cortisol, which is the biomarker for stress. Human beings are not just social animals, it would seem. We're not just social creatures because of this prolonged childhood and infancy and dependency. We may be far more social than many other species. We're hyper-social creatures. We're wired for intimacy. We're programmed for closeness. We're more needy of interpersonal attachments, and we're more likely to suffer when those attachments are missing. And that suffering is palpable. They measure it in a laboratory. They hook people up to electrodes. These crazy experiments they do, you've got to wonder sometimes. But, you know, slap someone in the face and then make them feel ostracized. You do that by getting them to play a little computer game, and they think they're playing against other people. It's really machines, but suddenly the machines start collaborating with each other and playing against, you know, the person who's hooked up, and they say, "See, everyone's against me here." The slap and that feeling of being shut out, they trigger the same circuits in the brain because it hurts. You know, it's a physical sensation not to have any chums. And when you have a physical hurt like a toothache, you know, maybe Tylenol can help with that. But loneliness is harder to cure, though a lot of people take drugs and opioids try to dull the pain. Over 20 years ago, a sociologist named Robert Putnam wrote a bestseller called Bowling Alone. Maybe some of you read that or remember it. He documented the societal costs of our disconnected culture, falling rates of volunteerism, loss of civic engagement, drops in charitable giving, decline of organized religion, the growth of gated communities. These were all symptoms, he said, of a population that was retreating from one another into strictly private pursuits. So instead of going to the movies, we have home entertainment centers. Instead of bowling leagues, we have personal trainers. And Putnam identified television as the main culprit behind this loss of connectedness. He said, people who identify TV as their primary form of entertainment also tend to work less often on community projects. They go to fewer dinner parties, they spend less time visiting friends, they give blood less often to the Red Cross. They express road rage more frequently than a demographically matched set of people who differ only in saying that TV is not their primary form of entertainment. Of course, this was 20 years ago. Putnam was writing before the internet became such a big thing, before cell phones hardly existed, before social media understood how to take the angriest, most disruptive voices in the room and amplify them up to a roar. And it's only gotten worse with the pandemic. Social distancing was necessary, but it had a big price. Doctors have identified Zoom fatigue as a real ailment, with apologies to all of you watching online. I'm better in real life. Yeah. Do we get tired of looking at those little heads encapsulated in tiny boxes? You know, talking heads and people staring off to the side and their faces popping on and off the screen. That doesn't trigger the same rush of serotonins and other feel-good biochemicals that we get from actually seeing each other and making eye contact and having a hug and shaking hands. Supposedly, the most frequently used phrase of the year 2020, you all know this? Most frequently used phrase of the year 2020? You're on mute. You're on mute. I can't hear you. There was one psychiatrist who likened Zoom to the nutritional equivalent of junk food. And I love junk food, you know, potato chips, they're vegan. They're gluten-free, but they're not very healthy and they'll fill you up, but they leave you feeling empty and hollow, and you can probably survive on soda pop maybe, but you know, you're not going to fare very well in the long run. And I wonder how much of the violence and the threats of violence and the insanity around us is rooted in our isolation from each other. QAnon, conspiracy theories, general paranoia. Back in my parish ministry, when I was doing this full time, I had an urban congregation, a downtown congregation, and so naturally, a lot of people would come knocking on the church door, especially people who were sometimes disturbed or disoriented or had special needs. I remember one woman, it was very frightening. She came up in a van and she had some children in her car seat, and she thought her children were being possessed by demons. And, you know, there was another gentleman who came in and wanted to talk, and he was sure that God was talking to him personally on the radio because religious delusions, I'm sure all of you in the health profession know this, religious delusions, these are very common psychotic features. And so, yes, I would try to steer these people toward professional help, but I would also encourage them to try to find a congregation. I tell them to seek out church where they felt at home, where their private visions and revelations could be tempered and moderated by a tradition, by a community that had some grounding in reality. Take the voices inside your head, I would say. Take them out into the sunshine. Take them out into the public, take them into the temple because it's in seclusion that madness festers. So congregations I have always thought of as being a lot like community mental health centers or free clinics. Now, this is a place where walk-ins are welcome, where you don't need an appointment, where no referrals are necessary, where we're even open on Sundays. And there's good evidence, good data that people who attend religious services live longer. They have better immune systems. According to the National Health and Social Life Survey, which is the most detailed study of sexual behavior that's ever been conducted here in the United States, those who participate in worship once a week have better intercourse. And it's also true, of course, that those who belong to a church or a synagogue or a mosque are less lonely. And yet, the thing is that most people don't really come to church just to lower their blood pressure. They don't even come here to have better orgasms. Mostly people seek out a religious community because they actually want to do something to give back. They want to feel part of something larger than themselves. They want to be a force for peace and justice and equity in the world. They want to leave this earth a little better by their passing. They want in some way to add some value to this universe, even if it's only by their own praise and witness. And that's the beauty of it. It's the ones who want to help who receive the most. It's the lovers who see kindred spirits and soulmates everywhere by tapping into their own most generous impulses. Those who give most lavishly are themselves enriched. So there's healing power in congregations. And this holds true even of Unitarian Universalist circles. Even though we have a higher percentage of introverts than most other religious denominations. I think I heard that here first. I think Lynn Pearson told me that, and I wasn't sure if it was true. And I went looking for it online. I thought I could Google everything. It turns out no. But last month we went to Nopalitos for lunch, so I had an informal show of hands. How many of you are introverts? Everybody raised their hand. So I'm going to ask you this morning, how many of you are kind of toward that introverted side of the spectrum? I see quite a few hands going up. Maybe more than half. I'm not sure. And how many of you are so introverted that you're just afraid to raise your hands? So, we have some contemplative people here, introverted people. Sometimes we're called God's frozen people. We can the frozen chosen. We can be a little closed emotionally. We can be rugged individualists, can't we? Independent thinkers. We can be somewhat standoffish, a little prickly. I'm not going to ask anybody to raise hands here. I'm talking about those other people, not you. No, but some of those other people in here, they can be a little hypercritical sometimes. But even, I would say, even we religious liberals, we have this ability to forge relationships that matter. We can support each other in times of trouble. We can affirm our co-humanity. We can ease the estrangement of these hard times. And we can enjoy the extraordinary pleasure of just being together. This was the final sentence or two from the reading this morning from Wendell Berry. He says, healing is impossible in loneliness. It's the opposite of loneliness. Conviviality is healing. To be healed, we must come together with all the creatures to the feast of creation. So we can do that here. We just have to work a little harder at it than most others. All the lonely people, where do they come from? Where do they belong? I don't have the answers. I think it's a cultural condition we struggle with. It's a human condition we all face. But I do believe that answers exist here among you in Las Cruces. How can this congregation live out its covenant to dwell together in peace, to help one another, to enable people to, there's such a thing as too much togetherness too. You've got to feel safe and comfortable in your own boundaries, but you've also got to be able to step outside those boundaries to risk yourself a little bit into deeper and more lasting commitments. How do we do that? And how can we encourage those who are shy or are reticent or not totally comfortable at coffee hour or in these situations we create where people are supposed to mingle? How can we make it easier for them? How can we help everyone feel that they belong, that they're included? How can we make it easier for them to ask for help, or better yet, create, norms and traditions where you don't have to do so much asking, where it just happens that everyone feels included and valued? So I don't think I have the answers to all those questions, but I think there are answers, and I don't think that any one of you singly has them, but I think that they do exist among us and between us, because truly we are all better together.
The operation and outreach of the church needs your input and your contributions. And this is the perfect time to think about what you can give back. In a moment, the greeters will pass among you with the offering baskets. Please give generously. But before they do, I should remind you that we support organizations identified by our Social Justice Committee with our Change for Change program. This quarter's recipient for our Change for Change is, and I have a blank spot here, Animal Advocates. Thank you. You can give to them by putting your change in the basket or by writing Change for Change on the note line of your check. Please give generously. Thank you for that beautiful music. Would you join us in the closing hymn? This is number 18, What Wondrous Love. Please rise in body or spirit. Singing now, singing, singing.
Closing thought is from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "The best way to have a friend is to be one."
Would you join me in extinguishing the flame? The words are on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.